Posted this one in a creepy thread ages ago. Story is from an ex-military guy I know from the pub. Pilot flying up in the Northern Territory. Radio into the airstrip, he knows the couple that run it. Says he'll be there in 4 hours, will radio when he's near the airstrip. Gets close to airstrip, radios the couple in. No reply. Circles and tries again. Still no reply. Goes to airstrip in the next town over. Tells the lads working there that the couple never picked up the radio. They call the police. Police come around to them. They all travel to the airstrip the couple own. Get there about 2 or 3 a.m. The lights in the house are off, but the spotlights are on. Some were shining off into the hill. They walk around the side of the house where the dogs are kept. 2 things they notice right away. The dogs are dead, but there was no sign of physical harm on them. They all had looks of terror on their face. It appears they were literally scared to death. Second thing was that the side of the house was riddled with bullet holes, but they were fired from the inside out. They go into the house to find the couple dead on the ground, with the man's AR-15 in his hand. They had a look of fear and shock on their faces, same as the dogs, and they were said to have died the same way as the dogs. Police radio it in. At dawn, most of the other police and paramedics get there, and so do some lads from the Air Force. They saw them talking to the police, then came over to the locals and told them to fuck off out of here, and to not tell anyone what they saw, or may have heard. The guy who told the lad from the pub I go to was in the Air Force, and was involved with Project Blue Book and other UFO-related business. He told him strange lights and other strange events had went down in the area the night of the incident. Here's a story that I've never shared before. It's not really paranormal, but it scares the living shit out of me. 17 years old, been smoking weed regularly with a couple of guys from college. I'm from the UK, we start college at 16. For a year now. One of the guys casually drives, and we smoke up in this field that's deserted at night. Driver gets a call from someone. He starts freaking out, literally laying on the floor, screaming down the phone. Never heard screaming like that before. It was fucking terrifying. He's not even making sense. He's like writhing around on the floor and screaming down the phone. Starts doing this weird fucking laugh, all bug-eyed and weird. Calmly puts his phone in his pocket. Climbs very tall fence for a tennis court. Jumps off, lands on his neck, and fucking kills himself. Guy I hung around with every day for a year just ups and kills himself because of a phone call, and none of us know who it was on the other end. I wish I was making this up, but it fucked me up for a while afterwards. The other guy that we were with started using ketamine regularly. We're both 21 now, and he's completely screwed in the head. I was on medication for a while afterwards, but came off of it quickly. The police put it down to a stoned idiot climbing the fence. They interviewed us both once, and that was it. I never even heard from his family. They moved out of the county pretty quickly. I still have his younger brother on Facebook. I've buried the memory somewhere in my brain and just try to ignore it. But whenever my phone rings and I don't have the number saved, then I always get a horrible feeling, and I never answer. I'm not even explaining how fucking weird this guy was acting when he answered his phone. It was horrible. The fucking noises he was making were so fucking disgusting. I can't even try to explain it, because it makes me feel physically sick. 2008. Grew up poor. Have to share a room with big sister. Room is tiny, so we really bitch about having each other's stuff in our zones. She gets the huge plant leaf thing from IKEA with her allowance that she saved up. Hangs it on the wall between our beds, so it's kind of like a partition. First night it's up, I'm staring up at it from bed. Sort of at an angle, so I'm looking partially underneath, if that makes sense. It makes a really weird shadow on the ceiling that looks like someone looking over the edge of it. It freaked me out, but I didn't say anything. Would have just gotten laughed at. Every night for like 6 months, I look up at this thing and think how weird the shadow is. Can't figure out what it is. Seemingly no cause for it. One night, I'm looking at it, and I almost convince myself that I can see eyes. Almost like that reflection animal eyes have, but way duller. Actually getting kinda freaked out. Suddenly, I hear from my sister's bed. "You see it too, right?" Both of us flip out and turn on the light. Of course, nothing's there. Take the leaf down and try to forget about it. Turns out, she'd been seeing it for months. Always in the same spot. Always looking down at me. Worst thing I've ever seen? Welder. Been on the job for about 10 years. I've seen a lot of shit. People are really fucking dumb when it comes to welding, is basically what I've learned. Watched a guy literally fry his eyeballs because he forgot his face shield and didn't want to get in trouble. The worst was a new guy I'll call Dave. Dave is a really nice guy, but is fucking dumb as shit. He has to be told every single day to follow even the most basic safety precautions. Me and everyone else is just counting the minutes until Dave fucks up so bad he either kills himself or everyone else. Working with Dave on a prefab project. We've been working for a couple hours, me holding Dave's hand the whole time. I have to take a break, tell Dave to work carefully until I get back. In hindsight, this was an even dumber decision than I thought. This is what I was told happened to Dave. Dave has been welding for a few hours. Dave's clothes are covered in shavings from the work. Dave does not understand that slag and metal splinters stick to fabric and have to be picked off manually. Dave gets a really good idea. Dave turns his blowtorch off to kill the flame and uses the oxygen as a blow duster to clean the metal off of his clothes. Dave feels very proud of himself. Before anyone can tell him not to, Dave turns his torch back on and goes back to welding. The sparks start to fly. Dave, who has thoroughly oxygenated his clothes with his blowtorch, goes up like a fucking Roman candle. I heard the screaming all the way back from the break room, and I know it's Dave. Sprint back in time to see Dave running for the fire extinguisher while on fire. He doesn't make it that far. Dave has a lighter in his shirt pocket. Dave did not listen to me when I told him to take it out. Lighter explodes. Dave's clothes explode. Dave explodes. I grab the fire extinguisher and blast what is left of Dave with it. And there isn't much. Most of his lower face is crispy. Skin is hanging off of his chest in big strips. Blisters. So many blisters. Dave is moaning. The inside of his mouth is totally raw. Dave inhaled the flames. He's coughing out all this fluid and pieces of his tongue. The kitty lock on his lighter, that little metal strip above the flint, has been propelled with such force that it has embedded itself in his eye. The fluid from it boiled and burned the socket of anything it touched on his face. Dave is gasping for breath. I know Dave is fucked. Dave dies before the ambulance can get there. To be honest, none of us really miss Dave. I have told this story before. It's been capped and can be found somewhere. But I lost all my saved files a long time ago. I'll give it a quick skim over, as it was a scary case story, and it's a sunny day and I'm not in an X mood. I live in Maine. I planned a mission of traveling around part of the state. Traveled through the woods. Only reason was to see if I could travel so far with minimal equipment and no human interaction. Making my travels. See police cars driving by at high speed on first day. Duck behind log as to not be seen. Nearly a whole convoy rolls by. Wander about carrying on travels. Bait and capture a couple rabbits. Kill them, skin, cook, and eat one. Put the other 2 in bag. Create makeshift axe for crude structure building. No tent brought. Find an abandoned rusty-ass car. Get into back seat and sleep in car overnight. Fox howling, bird screams, nothing out of the ordinary. Thud, thud, thud. 3 bangs hit the car's hood. Flashlight in general direction. There's nothing. Probably just a fox jumping across the hood. Sleep. Wake up next morning to find my axe slapped dead center into one of the rabbits. Its pelt removed, and some of its meat is gone. Presume animals, but the axe is scary. Keep traveling over that day. Hear screams and running and a small dip in the scenery around me. Crawl over. Remember, no human contact. See someone running down the hill opposite side of the dip into the center. Person stops, looks around, and then heads up the hill towards where I am. Bolt it. Made a safe distance and carry on walking. Keep walking. Hear screams. Bolt behind a tree. Woman with brown, muddy leaf-covered hair runs around. Screams for a bit. Ragged clothes and no shoes. Blood on her feet and bottom of her dress. She starts punching a tree and runs off in a direction. Freaking the fuck out. Run in the opposite direction to her. Fall down a hill. Go to grab my pistol. Fall down into taped off area. Police. Everywhere. All in all, I had rolled into a murder scene. Bodies were already bagged and taken away, but evidence was being looked for. I was taken in and questioned. Mentioned the person I saw. But police also were very curious of what I was doing. Police then took me home halfway across the state. I have a story that I like to call Murder Bus, trademarked, when telling my friends, but probably doesn't deserve such a dramatic name. Girlfriend and I are out at night, driving home. Stuck at stoplight, and 2 other vehicles also pull up. One is a normal-looking Holden, projecting only the slightest of malevolent bogan energy. The other is the Murder Bus, trademarked, which at first we figured was just an odd-looking party bus. Study it closely because it's odd, and we were stuck at the stoplight for fucking ages, in spite of no traffic. Fucking Perth. It has completely blacked out windows, which is normal for a party bus. Yet, it also has short strips of black tape all over it. Some are hanging off loosely. Some white paint job under the tape, though it's rusted and flaking off in certain spots. Have my window down because it kept fogging up, and the rental would survive a little sprinkle of rain. It dawns on me all of a sudden that the bus is completely silent. No music, no people talking, or any of the telltale signs of a good time. Completely still with clearly no motion from the passengers. Figure it must be empty then, maybe on its way back from a gig. And then I hear a set of fucking loud pain screams coming from within the bus. The kind that you instinctually know is from distress. Girlfriend and I stop discussing the sketchy bus and keep our eyes front, fixed on the spotlight as the silence falls back in. Feeling watched for the remaining 10 seconds it takes for the light to turn green. Other car floors it, not wanting to get on the shit list of the mobile party ice den. A few minutes pass, and I let out an awkward chuckle. That was pretty weird, wasn't it, honey? Yeah, that was pretty... Oh shit, it's following us, isn't it? After we calm down, we decide the ideal plan is to pull into the nearby Nando's and pass some time in a populated place. 20 minutes of cheeky fear Nando's later, we go back out to the car, and we fucking see it. Murder Bus trademarked drives past the entrance of the shopping center. Pile into the car and head home, knowing it takes a few minutes to do a full circle of the shopping center. Never see it again after that, and sometimes feel that it was just us being paranoid babies. Still glad we weren't followed home though. That thing gave off a really bad fucking vibe. Ask about it to most of my more outgoing, read as man, whore, and raver, friends. Most of them say that they've never heard of or seen a bus like that before, and reassure me that what I had described was indeed a weird encounter. One thinks it was some kind of art project, which would have been pretty funny in hindsight, and I could imagine some jackass thinking it would be a good idea. I'm fully aware this was probably just some weird hobo or DIY disaster, but it still unsettles me thinking about the fact that it was possibly circling the shops that we pulled into for nearly half an hour. Be 9 years old, 4th grade. Me and my 2 friends who live near me walk home from school. Along the way, we're just kicking a rock back and forth to each other and talking about video games. We go the normal route, where we walk down a fairly busy road, and then cut off across the lawns of businesses and fields and playgrounds and stuff. We pass through one of the playgrounds, and there's a guy, about 50 to 60 years old. Looks like he's trying to fix his van. The parking lot is empty except him. Really no cars around. He sees us and starts yelling out to us.
"Hey, you boys, can you help me out? I need some help."
We knew that this is some fishy shit, so we noped the fuck out of there. We run towards the road and take the long way home along the busy streets. A week passes. A 3rd grader was abducted. Security footage shows it was the dude in his gray van. We talked to our teacher that day, and she calls the police. Police officers and investigators pull us out of class. He takes our statements. They eventually find the guy and the little girl a month later. This was in Anchorage, Alaska, and was a pretty big deal then. Be me, about a year ago. Need to do some general maintenance for my car. Oil change, tire rotation, etc. Too busy and don't feel like doing it myself, so going to take car to shop. Brother, who is the family car guy, is adamant that I take it to a dealership almost 40 minutes up the bypass. Fine, whatever, JPEG. Get to the dealership, have car serviced, and get back on bypass to go home. About 6 or 7 miles from dealership and cluster of cars. Get a weird feeling. Feel unsafe. Decide to speed up and get away from this cluster of cars. Not even a minute later, I see something out of the corner of my eye, in my rear view. A white SUV that I just passed is swerving across the lanes. Smoke coming from the back, obviously had a blowout. Other cars behind me start swerving to avoid the SUV. No idea if it hit any of them. Last I see of the SUV, it stopped in the median. No idea why I got that feeling that something was going to happen. Now make it a point to avoid large clusters of cars when driving on the interstates. Fuck, I've been thinking about this, and it reminded me of something eerily fucking similar back when I was a kid. Be me, in 5th grade, so either 10 or 11 years old. Wake up for school. Start typical morning routine of getting ready. While brushing my teeth. Get a huge fucking feeling of dread. It wasn't a I don't want to go to school feeling. It was a don't go to school feeling. Concerned, but brush it off. Finish getting ready, eat breakfast, and get in my mom's car to go to school. Dreadful feeling still in the back of my head, but I don't think much of it, probably just general anxiety. As my mom is driving down the road our neighborhood is off of, we come up to an incline with a slight curve to it. Dump truck carrying rocks from a nearby construction site. Coincidentally, the construction site was for an expansion of the bypass that my first story takes place on. Me and my mom aren't near the curve, but the dump truck is. I didn't notice this, but my mom said the dump truck was speeding. Right as we're nearing the curve, the dump truck flips on its side after almost doing a 180. Skids across the road towards us. Mom slams the brakes. The smaller rocks the dump truck was hauling come flying towards us, denting the hood of her car and cracking the windshield. Miraculously, both me and my mom were perfectly fine. If we had been even just a few meters closer, the larger rocks that the dump truck was hauling would have definitely hit us. Police come. Some people living in another neighborhood off of that road also come out to see if we need help. They get the dump truck driver out of his truck. Dump truck driver was beat up a bit, but also okay. Turns out he was like 15 or so, and didn't even have his license. Dad comes home from work to pick us up. Cry like a bitch when we finally get home, and play vidya the rest of the day. Again, I have no idea where this feeling came from. Uncle was dying of cancer, on a hospital bed. Doctors said he had 1 day left to live. I'm sad. Go to my room and lock the door. Randomly decide to do a blood sacrifice by sacrificing my life for his. Drew a pentagram on a piece of paper and then cut my palm with a knife and soaked the paper with blood. Prayed that my uncle gets better in exchange for my life. Next day, Uncle makes a miraculous recovery. This was just a coincidence, right? Be a few nights ago. Living in a pretty suburban area, with small patches or bushland dotting the place, but one particularly large one with a huge creek not too far from my place. Lying in bed when I hear someone letting the dogs out for a midnight piss break, but don't take too much notice of it. Not long after, starting to doze off, when I hear what I can only describe as a gurgly, yet still human, shriek. Sounded female, but only if said female had screamed while simultaneously drinking a glass of water. Wide awake now, confused as fuck, even more alert. Dogs hear it too, hear them bounding towards the fence, barking like they were about to have their final glorious battle. Shortly after the dogs begin barking, hear another strange noise. Started out as a deep sound, which sounded like a mix between Barry White going, and one of those doorstop things that make that glorious sound when you flick them. Freak the fuck out even more when after the initial sound, hear the same voice making an earf sound that is like a mix of a low as fuck seal cry and my ridgeback's bark, each one sounding more and more like the dog's. Grab my knife from next to the bed and run to the back door, hold it open a little, and make the "come inside" whistle, which consists of 3 notes that our dogs usually obey straight up. Both the dogs come barreling towards the door. The ridgeback runs straight in, but the fucking Jack Russell stops, turns around, and starts yapping at the fucking fence where the noises were coming from. The earth sound becomes more of a higher pitch, like the 2 barks were being played over each other. "Fucking dog, come inside!" Whistle again, and tap the knife on the door. Hear a small bang on the fence, and the Jack Russell hightails it inside, tail firmly between its legs. Slam the door, lock both latches, and pull the washing machine out of it to block the door, because fuck taking chances. Check both dogs for injuries. Nothing. Both seem happy as fuck, like nothing even happened. Send them both to bed. Grab a torch and walk around the house, looking out random windows to see if it was some fucker screwing with me. No one to be seen. Half shrug it off and head back to bed, keeping the knife and torch even closer to me now. Lying down, beginning to doze off when I smell what seemed like rotting flesh. Half panic, half calm, considering that, for some reason, the local rats like using our pool as a burial ground, and we have to constantly fish out bloated rodents. Sit up, prepared to go out, and check the pool through the window, when I hear it. Right from outside my bedroom window. I hear the exact same whistle that we use to get our dogs to come inside. Followed by one singular "Urf," from what sounded like if I opened the curtains, I'd be face to face with whatever made the noise. Lose my shit, grab the knife, call dogs out, grab torch. Temporary adrenaline plus anger-fueled bravery. Dogs must be feeling it. They're following without question. Sweep the yard, dogs sniffing around like dogs do. Check pool. No rats.
The fuck?
Turn to go back inside. Walk towards door. Dogs both dart to attention, looking at the area behind the shed. Hear a sound come out from behind. All I hear before bolting for the door, dragging the dogs inside, is a grotesque sounding
"The fuck?"
Nothing has happened since then. I've checked behind the shed during the day. No signs of anything larger than a dog hiding back there. Area is covered in low-hanging vines, so it's irritating as fuck to go through. Not the greatest story, I know, but I felt that I should share. Australian here. I'll tell a story from when I was on a road trip a few years back. Be me, decide one night, after drinking heavily, to gather a few friends and go on a road trip to Sydney from Adelaide for the long weekend. Pack the van. Figure it'll be more than a day's trip, so we will have to camp out for a night, unless friends want to keep driving throughout the night. We leave fairly late in the day, because we underestimate how lazy/hungover we all are. Get on the road at around lunchtime. Make good progress, flooring it on the highway. It starts to get quite late into the night, and we've all had a turn driving. Friend starts to feel really uneasy and carsick. Fuck it, we will just pull over and camp for the night. Friend gets increasingly sick throughout the night. Starts throwing up constantly into plastic bags in the van. No way in fuck I'm sleeping in the van. Myself and my other mate set up our swags, kinda like a mini tent/sleeping bag for one person. Outside in a rest and revive station set up along the highway, but with an eye shot of the van. Beautiful night, full moon, and bright as shit. Swag has a flap you can open so you can see out at the sky, but with mesh to protect you from bugs and shit. Decide to leave mine open to talk to mate and watch the stars. Eventually, fall asleep with the flap still open. I wake up in the middle of the night due to something dripping/hitting my face. It feels warm, and it smells horrible. I start to absolutely freak the fuck out, but I'm frozen with fear. What the fuck is going on? My eyes slowly adjust and I can see a silhouette of something peering into my swag. I violently close my eyes and pray to fucking God that I don't die. The swag shudders suddenly, as if something climbed on top of it. But then, the silhouette disappears. I hear the van door open, and then, running. Sick friend rushes over to my swag and unzips it in hysterics.
Are you fucking okay? Oh god, I watched it the whole time. Where the fuck is Aaron?
We both turn on our phone torches and leg it over to his swag. It looks like as if it had been dragged a few meters, and the pegs are out of the ground. He's literally fucking frozen and wide-eyed. He starts whimpering and crying. We grab him up and bolt to the van, lock the doors, huddle on the floor under a blanket for the next few hours until sunup. 3 grown men cowering in fear. The next morning, we start the van and just drive, leaving our shit behind. Come to the nearest police station in Horsham. Tell cops our story. They follow us back to where we were set up for that night. Sure enough, Aaron's swag had been moved, a trail from where we first set it up. The top of both of our swags is spattered in something. It looks like spots of dried saliva on the mesh, and it smells awful, like decayed meat. Pack our shit up and leave, back towards Adelaide. We have no fucking idea what happened that night. Cops think it may have been some sort of animal. Mark is adamant that whatever he saw outside the van was stooped over and moved erratically. Never camping out during the night again. Fuck my country so hard. Be me, 8 years old, French kid, in French Alps, in a chalet. Be with a group of parents' co-workers, children. Group is from 8 to 13 years old. My face when I'm the youngest. In the evening, we decide to hang out because parents are having a boring dinner party. Snow is everywhere. The 13-year-old dude is guarding us. It's pitch black outside, since it's 9 p.m. Decide to go wander around in the old village. Only a few lights there. Come across this weird and creepy-looking bear-shaped wood sculpture. Whatever, .jpg. It's really slippy because of the ice. Cross the old village, arrive at the end. Decide to go back on our steps and head back home. Walk a few steps. Hear a creepy screeching behind us. Oh shit, .gif. Turns back, the fucking bear sculpture is there. Behind the sculpture is a super tall black figure staring right at us. Nope, .jpg. Run like hell. Even 13-year-old badass dude is horrified. Kinda ridiculous because we slip everywhere on ice. About 5 minutes later, we stop running cause we think he followed us. Look behind. Still the fucking bear wood sculpture, .gif. No tall black figure anymore though. Screeching comes back. A voice coming from behind the sculpture.
Revenez joie.
Translates to, come play again, for you anglophones. We nope again, and decide to never go back in this part of the village. Next morning, tell my parents about it.
Oh, Anon, you were just scared by your imagination.
I know it wasn't my imagination. See other kids from the evening. We all agree to never talk about this again. Visit the old village at daylight. No bear sculpture anymore. Leave the place, and eventually, never come back. I still don't know what it was, guys. Any ideas? Told this one a couple times before. Pretty short, but it spooked me. Few years ago, living in upper-class residential area. Fit friend at the time. Running at night cause it's California, and it's warm, even at 9 p.m. Common path I normally take is on this green belt between the rows of houses that leads to a park. Make it to the hill that leads down to the park. No streetlights whatsoever at this point. Pretty dark night. See the open field part of the park as I reach the bottom of the incline. 3 incredibly tall figures standing in the middle of the field, motionless. Doesn't look like they're talking to each other. They're not animated at all. Stop running, apprehensively watch to see if they're doing anything. Keep in mind, they're about 250 to 300 feet out from me. Start to move forward, again slowly. One of them spins on a dime, starts bolting towards me. Adrenaline kicks up past 11 and right to 12. I turn around and book it up the hill. Look behind me. He's on my trail. Summon all of the energy I have and sprint as hard as I can down the path. Jump off the path and start running across the front yards of houses. Look behind again. He's standing at the end of the street where the path is, watching. Run the rest of the way home, drenched in sweat. Took a few months for me to actually go out running again. Alright, liquored up enough. Here we fucking go. 1991, was about 10 years old, poor as dirt, and lived out on a farm. By poor as dirt, I mean we literally had nothing. No TV, no cameras, and besides a radio, nothing. We lived in a really rural area in the northernmost part of Wisco. No neighbors for more than a few miles. At home alone because my mom and dad needed to go into town to get some supplies. Listening to some shit that I can't remember when someone bangs on the door. Strange, since we normally don't get people out here. Go to the door. There's a fucking crack in the door. Motherfucker hit it so hard, there was a crack in it. Peek through the crack to ask him what was going on. He was naked and covered in blood. Ask him what the fuck he was doing on our doorstep.
I got in a car accident. Can you let me in to call someone to pick me up?
The dude's tone was flat, kinda like how a computer sounds when it speaks. Tell him to get the fuck out before I go all mafia on his ass. He smiles and says that I won't regret it if I let him in. Get freaked the fuck out and run upstairs to get my dad's shotgun. Was a small kid back then, so it was heavy to hold and almost knocked me flat when I first shot it. Motherfucker was reaching through the crack to try and get in. Shoot his ass. I knew I hit him because he pulled the fuck back and started running. Looked out of the crack and got ready to shoot him again when I see him running into the woods. On 4 fucking legs. Not how a person walks or crawls on 4 legs. This dude was like a fucking bear or something by how he ran. Too scared to shoot him again. Parents come home to me crying in the corner with the gun next to me. Dad freaks the fuck out when I tell him what happened. He said I can have some of the ice cream he got for me while he went out and tried to look for the dude. Came back the next day and immediately called my uncle, who lived in Milwaukee, to come and pick me up. The night before my uncle picked me up, I was doing my chores and checking on the cows. The same dude was in the barn, eating one of the stillborn calves. Nope. Go back to the house and tell my dad that some guy was helping himself to a burger in our barn. Goes out there with the gun and threatens to skin the dude if he comes back. The guy just laughs and walks off into the woods. Never came back.